Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Security Space podcast. Today, what we are discussing is from Firefighter to Firewall, navigating the leap into cyber. The reason for that being is that today's guest is Chris Baars, and what we will essentially be discussing is essentially Chris's journey from transitioning from a career in the fire service to one in cyber. The reason I wanted to speak to Chris about this is because I just wanted to see if there are any parallels between the actual frontline emergency response and the digital incident response, and if Chris's mindset and discipline and risk assessment skills that he learned from his time in the fire service has actually come over with him to the cybersecurity world. But yes, before we get into it, Chris, are you all right just to let the audience know a little bit about yourself, if that's okay?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Baars. I suppose my background is different than a lot of people who move into cybersecurity. I know you get some people from emergency services who come from the police, but when it comes to the fire service, I only know of one other, and I only found them very recently. So yeah, I did about 15, just under 15 years in the fire service, working between between a firefighter and sort of an incident commander as well. But the reason I decided to move on from the fire service, which I still maintain is one of the best jobs in the world, certainly one of the most fun, was a couple of reasons really. The pensions changed a little bit, so that was one of the big draws. But also, I just wanted to try something else. I felt like I'd done it for a long time, and I'd always had an interest in cybersecurity. So I thought, why not make the leap? It was very, very difficult for me to make that leap. And I ended up going into sales first before then moving into cybersecurity sales, and then eventually managed to make that leap onto the sort of business side of cybersecurity. Um, did in house work at Maersk and then went into consultancy before starting up my own company called Responder. And we focus on incident response as a discipline rather than just doing cyber or just doing emergency response. We do the breadth, so we're very much a response company, and that's sort of where I am now.
Nice. Okay. So obviously, I'll take us on a journey through this pod, or rather yourself, will Chris, and we'll end up speaking obviously about Responder at the end. But I just wanted to sort of pick your brain on why that transition first happened then, because obviously you moved out of the fire service, as a lot of people who listen to this podcast know that my dad had a full career in the fire service, and it's not one you tend to leave. I know you mentioned that there were a few things changing with the pension. That's probably why my dad retired about 3 or 4 years ago, to be honest with you. So he's probably seen that coming. And but yeah, what actually sparked the transition? Because you obviously went into sales, and was cyber even at the forefront then? What's your thoughts?
Yeah. So when I joined the fire service, my dad was a firefighter as well. My dad, and it's sort of like for me, it was almost like joining the family business kind of thing, and my uncle was as well. Um, but I got to a point where I felt I had done everything I wanted to do. You know, I'd been in big incidents, small incidents, fires, car crashes. I'd been on an extrication team where we go and compete to cut people out of cars. It sounds ridiculous, but it was great fun. Um, and I got to the point where, in all honesty, I kind of wanted to earn a little bit more money. I was getting a bit older, and I had friends who were in other jobs and all earning a lot more money than me. And yeah, it sounds really greedy, but I just wanted to do that and earn a little bit more and try something else. I wanted a fresh challenge. As I said, I'd kind of done everything I really wanted to do. Um, and that transition sort of led me, as I said, I had that interest in cybersecurity, certainly from a threat perspective, but I couldn't get a job. I tried to get a job in cybersecurity, couldn't get it. So I set myself a 5 year plan, as you do, and yeah, I decided I'll try and go into cybersecurity sales and then transition in from there. I couldn't get a job in cybersecurity sales because I had no sales experience. So I ended up going working for a sort of a facilities management company called PHS, and I sold things like sanitary bins and hand dryers and all sorts of stuff that is really difficult to sell because nobody cares. Like, do you care what kind of sanitary bin you've got? Probably not. That for 7 months, it's the worst job I've ever done. And I've done some bad stuff, horrible jobs when I was about 16, but it was awful. Did it for 7 months, got that sales experience. I managed to move into um, a, essentially a cybersecurity sales role for Custodian 360. I'm sure many of the listeners will have heard of them. And I worked with some great people, really enjoyed it, learned a lot, certainly about solutions and cybersecurity solutions, but it wasn't fixing that itch for me. It was very much, I still wanted to move into cybersecurity, and I managed to get a job as a GRC manager at Maersk. And I went from there. I think I did GRC stuff for about 6 months before being promoted to the operational readiness and exercising lead. And I worked across pretty much all areas of cyber there. So not really engineering, but worked with GRC, worked with education awareness, worked with SecOps, and really learned a lot. And from there, I went into consulting and worked for a number of consultancies, large and small. Yeah, and that sort of led me to here, really.
Nice, nice. And for a lot of people, I kind of just want to tap into now a little bit of your mindset in the sense of that takes some drive, and like I say, the fire service is not for everyone. You have to be a particular character because, obviously, I know it's seen my dad come home from road traffic collisions and whatever it might have been, and he'd become an expert of being able to separate his work self to his personal life. And like, 'cause it's not like your normal 9 to 5 crunching numbers, office hands. You'll see these office hands, they're soft. And they've not seen much. But like my dad, like he'd come home and he'd put in a shift, and but he'd sit round at breakfast table and to say, like, oh yeah, it was just a normal day at work. But it's not to the average day, average man on the street. Um, so where I'm taking it here is sense of like he was able to separate that identity, and but don't get me wrong, there was times where even this superhero that he was, he would come home and there was that little look in his eye where like, oh, like he just wanted to give me a hug because it was like that one was pretty hard what he had to do last night. Um, you'll know the severity of the role. So in terms of the mindset that you picked up, you've gone from being this role to then selling sanitary bins, all with one goal in mind, and you're like, right, no matter how hard this is. That's my goal, and I ain't stopping to get there. Whatever I need to do, okay, I can get a role in cyber sales. What's the next step back? And just keep going back until you're like, right, I'm on the right ladder now. Pardon the pun, and then I can climb the right ladder now. So do you think that is down to your time in the fire service that you were able to sort of adopt that mindset, or was it even before that? Is it something that your family's instilled in you, who were also firefighters?
Yeah, totally know what you mean. It's like I saw that with my dad as well. And you know what, with the compartmentalization piece, you do that. I was quite lucky in respect of some of the nasty things I've seen really didn't bother me to a point where it in really internally. The only one that really got me was children, seeing children instance, and that was always a hard one. And I always tried to find someone to talk to about that. But in general, taking that mindset and putting it into sort of that drive going forward. I don't know if it's something I got from the fire service. I've always had this sort of mindset where if you're not moving forwards, you're moving backwards. I don't like the idea of sitting still. And I suppose it was always the same in the fire service. When you're in an incident and you want to get someone out, if you're not actively trying to get them out, the chances of them coming out are going down by the minute or by the second, probably. Um, I don't really know if it came from the fire service or not, but it's certainly something that I've always believed, and I've certainly put into every role I've ever been in.
Well, that segues perfectly with what I wanted to ask you next. So you mentioned there about everything that you've sort of taken, like you say, like okay, if I'm not actively trying to save this person, their chances of surviving or declining by the second. Talk to me about how that transfers then into a skill that you can take into the cyber world in terms of like you say your instant response days now, or even sort of your GRC days beforehand. What sort of skills has transferred across, Chris?
So, one of the things that I think the fire service does better than anybody, and I really do mean pretty much every service, every job, is decision making under pressure. It's a bit different. It's different than, for example, in the army or in the police. It tends to be when you're in those situations, if you're in the army, you could be getting shot at. You've got to make decisions under pressure. That is extremely difficult. I can't even imagine being in that situation. And the police, it could be a similar situation. With the difference with that and being in a fire is uh, it's really hard to explain
Yeah, no.
because I haven't done the other things. But I imagine that being in a room that could be over 1,000 degrees at ceiling temperature and or even hotter than that, trying to make decisions while your head is sort of fried and you've only got a limited amount of information because you can't see anything. You
Yep.
can't see anything. You've only got what you can feel around you with your hand or the back of your hand and what you've been told when you're outside. That's it. So you've got to make decisions on the fly and you've got to make them under extreme pressure. And I think it really does make that's one of the things I've taken from that is under pressure I make very good decisions. My partner will tell you that I make awful. Actually, can we cut that?
Yeah, that's
Just
all right.
I don't think she'll want me to mention it. So actually, I'll say that I'll start that bit again.
That's all right.
So people will tell you that my decision making not under pressure can be suspect. To be honest, if there's no, I react well to pressure. So if there's no pressure,
Yep.
then it's almost as if I don't need to make a decision.
Yes,
Does that make
yes.
sense?
I can echo that, and I'll constantly sort of bring my dad into these stories because, like you say, he was in the fire service, and whenever there's like a situation at home or when the was growing up, and it was like a serious situation, if it was like a health or anything had happened, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, this is serious, this he'd zone into his work self, his work persona. It's like, and he'll just all of a sudden become really calm, and he'll just be like, right, okay, what's the problem? And it could be like, I don't know. I've never fortunately broken a bone apart from my nose, as you can see, that's as it's hanging off the other side of the screen. But if I know, for example, the like when I was playing football, and if one of my teammates had broken the leg, obviously parents be hysterical. It's like, okay, cool, what's going on? My dad would just like calm everything down and then go into his work persona of like, this is what we need to do. And it comes from the times at like OITCs, house fires, where it's like, okay, because you can't have a rash mind at that time because emotions are high, and when emotions are high, you don't see clearly, and you make rash decisions. So you have to calm down and respond like that. Relating that to the cyber world, what you were saying there, about like being really good at making decisions under pressure. It's like the only example I can sort of give is it's well and good all these people having these certifications and being in a nice, comfy exam hall, and being able to theoretically answer these questions as if it's a right process. But when you've got instances like M&S and co-op that has happened this year, where there is time constraints, there is people at risk of losing their job, there is millions of people who's lost data, you're getting media pressure because it's so high profile. These are the things you don't learn in the exam, and you're like, right, I've got to work 25 hours under the sun then. You're taking time away at home, so therefore you can't be attentive to your wife and your kids. You are getting tired yourself. You might have other stresses going on in your life at that time as well, but you've got to be that individual. So it's all about like all the other bits where it's like, right, it doesn't matter about that right now. I've got to zone in on the issue in hand. And like you say, when you're in the fire and you can't see literally your hand in front of you, it's blaring temperatures. That in the cyber world, it does correlate, and it's all about like trust your instincts, self-discipline. Let's calm down and let's make us one decision after another after another. So I completely get what you're saying there, Chris. And sorry if I've rabbited on there a little bit because yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Um,
I think there's a lot of cross-functional skills between the fire service and sort of cybersecurity. But one of the things I've always said is the thing that fire service gives you nothing of is a piece of paper to say you've got a skill.
Yep.
Like you don't walk away with any certifications or anything that are useful in the outside world, which I found very difficult. But from a cross functional skill perspective, you learn a lot. I mean,
Mm.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you ever feel any bits of imposter syndrome coming over? Because like making a change as like a grown adult with mortgages and bills, it's not like a student coming out of university. It's you've had a full life, a full career, and a full a bit of respect in that one career as well that you've earned. Did you ever find yeah, a bit of imposter syndrome coming over to a completely new field where you're the new guy again?
I mean, I'm Mr. Imposter Syndrome, so yes, I get that now. I still get it. The thing is, and I got to be honest, I got it in the fire service because and you'll know this. When you start off in the fire service, you start off as a junior, and you're working with people who have done nearly 30 years in the fire service, and they're like almost like gods.
Mm.
They know everything. I mean, in reality, I've been in cybersecurity for, I don't know, 8 9 years now, and I still feel like a newbie. You
Yep.
know, it's so cybersecurity is so broad that you'll never, no matter who you are, you'll never know everything. Like it's just so broad, and the people who do have that, not just generalist knowledge but deep generalist knowledge, I have the utmost respect for, because I don't think I'll ever be one of those people. I've got certain skill sets with GRC and incident response, or sort of more incident management, if anything. But yeah, I still get imposter syndrome now.
Yeah.
Coming out of a career where I did, a long time, and had a huge, vast experience. All the different types of incidents you can probably think of, and then going to something where essentially know nothing. I
Yeah.
thought when I left cybersecurity sales, I think this is always quite funny. I thought I knew so much about cybersecurity. That was the one time where I was like, I haven't got imposter syndrome. I'm confident. And then I went to Maersk, and it dawned on me within about half an hour how I knew nothing. Like I didn't know anything. I thought I did, and it turned out that my knowledge wasn't even scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it felt like a constant catch up for my whole career, trying to catch up with these people who have grown up with it. Some people went to university at 18 to do cybersecurity or digital forensics or things like that led directly into this,
Yeah.
and it's always felt like a catch up for me.
Great. So, and how are you? How do you respond to that? In the sense of like, what sort of self learning do you do? How have you actually opened these doors for yourself? Is it leaning on your network? How have you actually responded to that, Chris?
So I put myself through. Well, I didn't put myself. Companies have put myself through, and I've put myself through a number of certifications. And as far as I'm concerned, certifications mean absolutely nothing. I'm sorry if I upset people who have got some amazing certifications, but what does mean something is the learning that goes into being able to pass them. And it's the same with a degree. It astounds me that people can come out of cybersecurity of university and have these master's degrees and all sorts, and they can't get a job. And
Yep.
then someone's gone and passed a CISM, which is one of the certifications I've got, and it's really sought after. And they're like, "This is amazing." It's not like it's a multi. It's a what do you call it? A multi-answer test or whatever it's called. It's not even the same. It's not in the same ballpark. So sorry, I've just gone off on a tangent here, but
No,
I
no.
always find
Hey,
it really, really
Chris.
strange how degrees seem to have not little value, but once you get to a certain level, they don't even look at that. Well, actually, it's a body of work, whereas someone's just passed a little exam to get one of these certs.
Absolutely. No, no, I've said it on previous pods, so I won't say too much. But yeah, the recruitment process for a lot of UK sort of defense roles are is broken.
Yeah,
It's broken in the sense of whether HR don't have the knowledge of the cybersecurity, how to recruit for cybersecurity. I don't know because I don't want to sort of like be
yeah,
deliberately mean to them, but like they're just like the easiest way of filtering out a mass amount of CVs is like, okay, certifications, because certifications are black and white. It's yes or no. I don't have to read through a full CV that's very subjective, saying the same. I'm an ambitious, hardworking individual where they have to go through that, but they can be like, right, they don't have a CISM, cool, like they're in the no bin. It's like, well, do we need a CISM for this role, or God, do you think that every role needs a CISP, or does it need a CEH, or does it need a SANS, or GIAC? What does it
yeah,
need? And they don't understand the difference between all them certifications. I'm not saying that it's their fault; they just don't live in that world. But because you don't live in that world, don't just um they'll just count people out who on the basis of that, because it's a very silly way of losing out on a lot of good people in the industry. Like I say, I won't go into a rabbit hole because I could speak all day about that, but
I could as well.
absolutely.
It's a
So,
frustrating point.
Chris, what are you up to today then? So obviously you said that you're at responding. So it sounds like you constantly just don't like being in your comfort zone. It sounds like you like being uncomfortable. You've done the full kit.
So,
What are you
so
doing?
actually, I'm not going to talk about Responder for a for a second, but I mean not so much today, but I've actually, because setting up Responder is very very difficult, and it there's not a huge amount of money coming in just yet. There's a little bit, but not a huge amount, as you probably would expect in the early days. I've actually started with Oxford University as their interim head of GRC or security GRC, and yeah, I'm doing a number of bits for them. I actually really do like my comfort zone.
Yep.
That's where I thrive. The problem I've got is, as I said, I've got this thing in my head that's like you've got to keep moving forward. Unfortunately, as much as I like being in the comfort zone, as soon as you're in your comfort zone, you're probably not moving forward. So it's a struggle for me. But I love the comfort zone. One day, at some point, I'll take a step back and I'll say, right, you know what? I just want to sit still for a few years, and I'll take the most comfortable role
Yep.
ever, and I'm going to enjoy it. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
No, absolutely. And that's what we're all sorting for, aren't we? But that's what it's all about. It's just like, cool, I want to work to that level where I'm like, right, I'm happy with everything. I've got everything here. It says the balance with the work life. Financially, I can live the life that I want. And I actually enjoy Mondays. I don't get that Sunday feeling on Sunday night where I'm like, oh no, I don't know about
Yeah.
work tomorrow. So look, it's we're all human at the end of the day. And Chris, just tell us a little bit about Responder if you don't mind.
So, I mean, as I mentioned, Responder is primarily a response company, as you can imagine, with the name. Even though I missed out on E, everyone's taken the mick out of that at the moment. Um, it's very much, as I said, it's focused on response, but more from that tactical and strategic elements. We have got partners who will come in with us to do things like pen testing, check, or red team engagements. But for what we do, it's mainly teaching companies how to respond. What I would say is properly utilizing the experience that I've got and my business partner have got from the emergency services, who have been doing right. Emergency services have been doing instant response for 100 odd years. Right, they've got it down to a T. It's documented. It's it runs really well, and things don't change that much. The only things that change within the fire service really are the capabilities of technology. Whereas in cybersecurity, I feel the operational response is very good. You know, you've got the people, very skilled people who work in SOCs and CTI and all sorts. But the main focus is very much um, instant response, really.
Suppose my last question to you more than anything would be what are some sort of tips for people who are not necessarily leaving the fire service, but like those that are sort of maybe sort of like had a career before security and just they can kind of learn from lessons that you've done. Say like, look, do this, don't do that, and have this goal in mind. What's your tips, Chris?
So first of all, if you are making that transition into cybersecurity, it doesn't matter what career you've got, you will have cross functional skills. It's not something that's going to be quick. Don't just expect to be able to jump into a cyber role. If you want it and it's something that you've decided that you really want to do, you need to put a plan in place. Well, this is what worked for me anyway. Put a plan in place and try and find a route in. For me, it was sales, and I think sales is a really good way of breaking it. Depending on what you want to do in cybersecurity, if you want to be super technical, working in sales probably isn't ideal. Whereas if you want to go into GRC or consultancy or something like that, having that experience, just talking to people, building relationships is a key. It's a key skill. So figure out what those skills are that you've got, and figure out where in cyber you want to go, because that's another big thing. Most people say they want to be a hacker, or they want a red teamer or pen tester, and others say they want to go into SOC. I mean, I worked for Caps Lock and as a mentor, and I've spoken to a lot of people, and I'd say probably 70 to 80% give that answer.
Yeah.
Um, there's a whole wide world out there that's not in those two areas. So I'd say figure out where you want to go, figure out what your cross-functional skills are, and set a plan.
Yeah.
Figure out which direction you want to go, and go after it, because it's not going to be quick. You've got to be willing to put the work in and constantly be reading and learning, watching videos, whatever it takes to get yourself noticed, and then go out there and speak to people. That's actually how I landed my job in Maersk. It was I knew someone who worked there, and they told me that a role was coming up, and I kind of knew from them what to read up on. I knew what to focus on to get that role, and I was very lucky to get that. But it came from the work that I put in.
Fantastic, fantastic, really good advice. And I couldn't echo the last point more, in sense of like really sort of focus on your personal brand, your personal networks. It's massive in cyber in terms of like you just never know which doors you can open just from attending these networking events or meetups, or just even just LinkedIn, asking people about their role and like what problem do you solve, and you just never know. It's a very sort of welcoming industry in that sense. So yeah, that pretty much brings us to our time. So if anybody has any questions for Chris, whether that's his previous life or whether his life now, or his life that he's currently building with Responder, and would like to learn a little bit more about that business, I'll be sure to put all the information down below. But Chris, once again, thank you very much for coming on the Screw Space podcast.
Thanks, Nick. Cheers.